Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring DJHelium in our bottom right, playing our blue Zerg, and in the top left we have inFnev, our red Protoss. Both players are in Masters. We're on Ohana, and we're going to have a good time, because I said so. Both players know each other, evidently. I think they're on the ladder, because they're both in Masters, and they're on Ohana, and so this might be a match between friends, but I mean, it's red versus blue. It could be that they've just played against each other so much that they actually have a friendship, or they're practice partners and they wound up in the same league because they practice against each other and have comparable skills. That's basically, those are the only two possibilities. There's no other possibilities because I said so. Probes moving out and pylon being placed up on the high ground. Usually you see with this sort of matchup on Ohana, the Forge Fast expand is totally standard, very common, very easy. And I don't understand why the pylon's being placed up on the high ground besides, he's going for a more tech play. Usually you see this if you're going to have a gateway, cybernetics core, pseudo wall off, and then try to one base it for the time being. Or it could be that he's just extra cautious. You throw that pylon down on the low ground, you definitely commit yourself to taking that early expansion, and he wants to make sure that there's no cheese coming out of DJHelium, and there is no cheese coming out of DJHelium. He's throwing down the 13 pool, 14 pool, 15 pool, whatever you want to call it, a medium speed pool. It's not delayed after a hatchery, and it didn't come before the 10 supply mark, so in my mind it is medium speed. Both players are banking minerals though, and one probe is in position to throw down that nexus for inFnev, and at the same time DJHelium is past the halfway mark to throw down that first hatchery. He is moving out two drones, one of which is patrolling at the bottom of the ramp, another one is getting in position to throw down that hatchery, but the probe from inFnev is bugger. And oh no, nice play by Helium having that one patrolling at the bottom of the ramp, and then as soon as Nev was distracted by the one going for the hatchery, he pulls the other one and throws that down. That's a really nice play because those probes can hold you out from throwing down a base pretty much indefinitely if they want to, if they're sneaky like that. Pylon being placed on the low ground, coupled with a forge and a gateway up on the high ground. No gas just yet out of inF, which means that if there is going to be some sort of heavy tech play, it will definitely be delayed, and it's going to have to be incredibly devious, something like a Dark Templar or something like that. But as things are now, it's obvious that Nef is gearing up more towards the mid to late game sort of time that you'd expect from the Protoss. He was just a little bit more passive than you typically expect for a Protoss player to try to grab that natural expand. Both players are definitely playing like they know each other, they respect each other. That hatchery being built from DJHelium after the pool just tells me that he's very nervous when he's against inFnev, just because he's probably been on the receiving end of some sort of cheese at one time or another, and you get that respect once you're familiar with a player. One Zealot going against 4 Zerglings. It sounds like even odds, but with the other 2 Zerglings joining in, even though 2 of them have already gone down, that Zealot will get cleaned up. But just at the same time, the Photon Cannon finishes off, and all but one of the Zerglings that die before they can escape the range of that Photon Cannon. 4 for the 5 saturation down at the natural. 1 assimilator being built. We're going to see the other one grabbed any second now, I'm sure. Just now starting on the saturation for DJHelium and his natural expand. 23 to 22 harvesters, not a huge difference. We can see the resources loss is also pretty much neck and neck, so these players are definitely in the same league, I'll tell you that much. 2 extractors for DJHelium is going to be working on that tech eventually. Ooh, and grabbing a 3rd expansion for himself as well. Not a bad idea. Definitely can't do much to stop this expansion from going up and being saturated from inF. So Helium basically has 2 choices. Does he go for a Baneling Nest because he's got the gas income now, or does he just sit back and macro? And it looks like he's choosing the sit back and macro style of play. The Baneling bust can be incredibly effective, especially with a wall off of this style where you don't really wall off the entire ramp with the pylon placement. That makes it pretty much impossible, but you incorporate the nexus into your wall off, and with a single sentry and a single zealot you can actually defend this really handily, especially if you have the micro skills of someone you'd expect who is in Masters. That the Masters can definitely move these probes away from an engagement, even if something comes and runs along to the right side. It looks like, speaking of running, a couple of zealots have made their way more than halfway across the base, but those zerglings are incredibly fast, even without that speed, and they'll be able to run back home, regroup with the 6 more that are coming out, as well as the zergling speed, which is just now being started. It's true that the destructible debris hasn't been taken out just yet for Helium, but with the creep spread jumping over the wall like that, the reinforcements will not be delayed very, very quickly, and I think inFnev has to suspect at least that an expansion is going to be built down on that third, unless he already knows about it. He does. He saw that being built, probably with the probe that threw down that pylon, and is currently hiding off on the high ground by the 4th. Zealots deciding to run all the way back because he needs to burn the calories, but the Zealots are probably going to make their way across the map before that Zealot even manages to get back home. Not a lot to defend, by the way, of home. I mean, that one Zealot finally does arrive back, but one Stalker as well, so those Zerglings will have a pretty good opening as soon as that speed finishes, but it looks like Helium is using that speed to scout around the map, trying to scout these 2 proxy pylons, so that whenever speed gets finished, when by speed I mean warp gate tech gets finished, he can actually deal with the sort of aggression that's coming out from Nev's base. It looks like that aggression is going to be in the form of Phoenixes. There's going to be absolutely devastating to the Overlord count. We can see that 3 of them are positioned in pretty good areas around the map, going to provide quite a lot of scouting potential. Robotics Bay also being built. Warp Gate Tech has been finished. 3 more Warp Gates added on. So now we've got 4K with a Robo and a Stargate. That's a pretty good unit composition for Nev, especially with the Overlords going down. We can expect Helium to get supply blocked if more of them go down from the continued aggression from the Phoenixes. So we'll have to be aware of that. It looks like the Zerglings with their speed are going to get a surround on this, but with 4 more Zealots being warped in, the number of Zealots is absolutely way too much for just a handful of Zerglings to deal with. 22 more Zerglings on the way, as well as +1/+1 being built. And this is the moment where Helium really wishes he took down those destructible debris, because if it was down, yeah, it would allow Neff to push into his natural a little bit faster, but he might be able to save this hatchery, because all these Zerglings are going to pop, and he's got plenty of them positioned up at the natural, and they could do something if he attacked just now. But as things are, the hatchery does go down. The Brood Leans will go to town on a couple of the Zealots, but with the Phoenixes holding the ramp, those Phoenixes are going to be able to pick up any queens that expose themselves to them and do quite a lot of damage. It looks like a couple of Stalkers were surrounded by the Zerglings, and they did go out, but the +1 is just now finishing. The Phoenixes are continued to poke around at the sky. What, just a single kill, two kills on those Phoenixes, so probably all of them are Overlords, really. +1 will finish. Only the Fester Pit is done with the pathogen glands on the way. It looks like Nev is going to have to push back, content with his ability to, take out that third. That's a major win for him, and unfortunately those Phoenixes are going to have a limited role from here on out, because we can see the Spore Crawlers just doing quite a lot of damage to them. And while the production of those Phoenixes continues, they're not going to be the most cost-effective unit as time goes by. Nev taking a page out of my book, taking down those destructible debris, allowing him to reinforce even faster. It's more important for Protoss to do that than the Zerg, really, but it's still a good idea for anybody to do it. I'm surprised that Helium hasn't taken his third back just yet. I mean, he's got to be feeling a little bit on the back foot from all of those Overlord losses from the Phoenixes. But he does have a pretty sizable force of Zerglings, which, I mean, can definitely work in his advantage. These Phoenixes have to be very careful with the Infestors now being built. One of them is popping out on the field just now. Already 4 are out and will be accumulating energy, and their ensnare ability, or fungal growth ability, will really cripple those Phoenixes. And we can see that there's no more Phoenixes on the way for the production tab, even though a couple of Overlords are still scattered around the base. Robotics Facility is working on that first Immortal. We don't see any roaches coming out of Nev. He is taking out those destructible debris. Those Phoenixes not even bothering to pick up any of those Zerglings. Hitting a couple of the Overlords, but really have to dart away pretty quickly once he sees those Infestors. Doesn't want to stay in range of the Spore Crawlers for very much longer. Blink on the way, as well as the +3, no, +2. with the robotics facility, Colossus will be incredibly effective with all of these Zerglings, but don't discount the possibility for a Warp Prism, because a Warp Prism, as Zerg begins to spread out, begins to take more and more bases, can be very cost effective. Dropping off just a handful of Zealots can absolutely ravage a drone line. And force a Zerg army to retreat. And with the air control that these Phoenixes afford, that Warp Prism could be a pretty powerful tech switch coming up for inFnev. Speaking of tech switch, we do have +1 range attack for Zerg being researched, so maybe we will see a couple of roaches eventually. Those Phoenixes are well within range of that Overlord, but not quite taking them out. That's too bad. I didn't know their range was that small for sight, at least. And this is a pretty intimidating army. I mean, four Immortals, not as many sentries as you would expect. You really want more sentries, but the gas is being spent on higher tech units. I mean, Colossus with their range, the armor, the blink, that's all very gas heavy. And this Zergling Infestor army will have a hard time against those Colossus, but not so much of a hard time against those Immortals. So this will be a very interesting battle. It'll come down to the micro of both players, really. The micro of the Infestors, particularly those fungal growths, will have to be devastating on the Zealots, as well as carefully choosing exactly when he wants to engage. There's not much he can do to prevent this third from being built, but I think Helium is thinking just that. I think he thinks he can get in there and do quite a lot of damage. He doesn't have to worry too much about all of those those Phoenixes choosing to throw out just pure infested Terran, not even bothering with the fungal growths. It probably will result in more damage being done overall, and definitely result in those those infestors surviving this combat. We can see just absolutely how devastating this this fight has been, and with so many infested Terran waiting in the wings, will be definitely losing this nexus. The saturation of the probes is completely gone down. We can see that the workers kill tab 24 in the favor of Helium. Unfortunately, the Colossus survives, as well as the 2 Immortals, so the 2 units that it takes forever to re-macro will have survived. And yeah, a couple of Zerglings have made their way into the main base, and they'll go to work on the saturation there, but a quick warp in of some Zealots will clean them up, even though the photon cannon does go down. 2 Colossus out on the field still. A third one probably, it's getting started immediately from the supplemental robotics facility. So those Colossus will play an even larger role in the future. We can see a Spire is being built, so some Corruptors will be popping out on the field any minute now. It's surprising that the third has gone up, but no gas has been taken. Gas will be playing a huge role later on. And inF has 700 gas saved right now, but Helium doesn't have, he's scraping the bottom of the barrel. He's only got 200 left. He needs to grab a fourth. He needs to be very cost effective with his Infestors, and judging from that first engagement, he definitely was. I feel like he definitely came out on top of that. I mean, the resources lost tab heavily in the favor of Helium, but these Colossus survived that first fight, and every fight that comes in afterwards, those Colossus are going to be doing some ravaging damage. I mean, +2 attack is done. They have range, and they're going to absolutely melt any Zerglings that come out into the field. And this is the answer for Zerg. I mean, they're getting their Corruptors, they're getting that +2 missiles, as well as the Ventral Sacs, so that the Overlords could be used more for scouting. Maybe we'll see some Bane Rain. But really, it'll come down to how fast can the Colossus work their way through the Zerglings so that they can go to work on the Infestors, and how fast can the Infestors take out the Zealots so that the Corruptors can have free reign on the Colossus, because unit positioning will be very key in this fight. And Ohana really does a good job of splitting up those large forces with so many small pathways. I mean, this force is almost too big to fit down one of those pathways. We can see that Nev is taking out the destructible debris, thinking about taking his 4th there, but with Helium out on the field with more than a handful of Corruptors, I mean 6 Corruptors total, that's quite a lot of anti-air. Those Phoenixes won't be able to do too much to prevent those Corruptors from fully taking out those Colossus. Ventral Sacs is done. I don't know if he researched pneumatized carapace. Oh, he did. So yes, he can pick up units, and with the Baneling nest being built, these Zerglings will become Banelings, and these probes will become scrap metal shortly, I am sure. Where is the main force for Nev? He's pulled back, spending a bunch of his excess gas in the form of High Templars, getting out a lot of Archons, very resilient Archons, very AoE heavy Archons, and we'll really see if DJHelium can continue to be cost effective, because that's where this build has problems. If you continually lose infestors, you're not very cost effective, and Helium's been doing a really good job keeping them cost effective. Instead of throwing down the banelings, it looks like he's going for a combination of an attack, using his infestors to throw down quite a lot of infested terra, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just lifted them off. Instead, he's burrowing them, and that forces the repositioning of Nev's armies, pulling them all the way back, and then once that army has been exposed, I expect we're going to see Helium push up into the third, and that's exactly what's happening. There goes the Colossus fighting, the Immortals fighting, and Helium any minute now will be pushing off into the third. There he goes. The Corruptors scouting around, trying to find a handful of those Colossus, taking a couple of shots from the Archons underneath, but there goes one Colossus, there goes another Colossus. At the same time, the Zerglings and Infestors are pushing off into the third. This is looking incredibly grim for Helium. His forces are in all different areas. It's not really an all-in, is it? I mean, did he lose a bunch of workers at home? No, he didn't. Workers killed 70 to 4. 80 to 4. I mean, it's not really an all-in. He had plenty of economy back home. Yes, Zerg definitely needs to get up another base, because 3 base on 3 base is not a position that Helium is comfortable in. But this is a position that Helium is comfortable in. I mean, he's absolutely ravaging the infrastructure for inF in more than one area. Just bad. Not bad play, but just a bad situation. This was a good play. This was a very good play, and I appreciate Helium for posting this. I'm assuming it was Helium because you won. People rarely post games they lose. I think I've seen one. If you guys have a game that you want to post, that would be awesome. You could PM me here or on Reddit, one way or another. I will see you guys later. I am Ibigandscary. Bye.